Because Jesus makes this promise. This is Matthew chapter 6. Jesus did a lot of his ministry talking about the kingdom, which was perplexing to us because we live in this temporal experience. And so a lot of what he talks about is like, hey, don't trade the eternal for the temporal. Don't live your life for this life. Like if you seek to do that, you're gonna lose it. But if you give up your life, if you live the way I'm telling you to live, then you'll gain everything. And so in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, Jesus tells us, look, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them and COVID-19, and next thing you know, you look at your bank account and it don't look like you can retire when you thought you were gonna retire and the housing market's crazy and you can't move. Trust me, I've been through some things trying to parachute into the state of Virginia. And where thieves break in and steal, verse 20, what does he tell us to do? To store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. And so we have to understand, like, what is Jesus teaching us here? He's like, look, if you keep your mind on these things, if you keep your mind and your eyes focused on the eternal, then you're gonna be blessed. Like, it's not a prosperity thing. He's not saying like, hey, if you give away more money, I'm gonna give you more. No, it's not just that. He's like, you get to partner with me in my mission. You get to experience God in a way that you can only experience him by embracing generosity. So the test here, when we look at this verse, we have to understand that generosity isn't a supply issue. Like last time I checked, God is not gonna run out. He's inexhaustible. It's one of his attributes. It's part of his character. It's who he is. No, it's an obedience issue. What we're really saying is like, God, I think I'm gonna run out. And when I do that, I'm actually putting all my trust in me. And so what God always does, he leads you to that next step of faith. Like the moment you think you've got it, he's like, nope, you think you figured me out. Here's the next test. Here's the next step. Because if you can do it, it doesn't take God. And so God always leads us to that place of faith. And not only that, he says, will you give it when I ask it? So again, that's the obedience thing. It's all right, God, I'm gonna spend some time talking to you. And if you want me to give you something, then I'm gonna trust you. Like, you're God, I'm not. It's totally a posture shift where we're embracing the reality that he's God and we're not. And when we look at this, he's really challenging us. In this verse I'm about to show you in a second, God doesn't say that he gives seed to the hoarder. He doesn't give seed to the waster. He gives seed to the sower. So again, there is an action step. Like if he's giving you seed, it's for the purpose of sowing. So this is in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. We'll look at a couple verses there. And what Paul is doing here, he's about to collect an offering. He's talking to a church that he planted, this church in Corinth. And the home church, the mother church, which is in Jerusalem, is taking care of some needs in their city. So there's a lot of poverty. There are widows, orphans. And in order to meet that need, he's asking this church, like, hey, you guys are blessed. You guys have the resources. So allow yourselves to spend some time with God and do what he's asking you to do. And so in verse 6, he says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And if God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. So what Paul is saying there is like, look, God's got your needs, but there's some things you want that you don't need. What God has created you for is for good works. And some of us being able to take steps into those good works is by actually creating margin in our spending, knowing that God's taking care of our needs. He's supplied that, as we're gonna continue to see in a moment. But wouldn't it be nice to just be able to answer needs as soon as they popped up? We can, if we embrace this habit of stewardship and grow in our generosity. So you can give it all things and all times. Having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. As is written, verse 9, they have freely scattered their gifts to the poor. Their righteousness endures forever. Paul's saying, hey, transfer that to the heavenly bank account. That's where you want your reward to be. Like Jesus said, you want your reward in heaven. You want a reward that will last forever. Verse 10, he says, now he who supplies the seed, God, he gives seed to who? The sower, not the waster, not the hoarder. And bread for food. And so I think sometimes, again, growing up, I kind of got this confused as well. We think about our bread, right? Your money. You think about it like this. And what Paul is saying is like, look, don't all your money, all your resources, the bread is the part that you eat. Like you live off the bread, but don't neglect the reality that God gives you seed. And you don't want to eat your seed because if you eat your seed, you're not going to be able to plant anything and nothing's going to grow. And so we need to make sure that we're dividing things up the way God prompts us to. So you want to plant your seed and you want to sow that seed. So he'll also supply and increase your store of seed. He'll give you more seed to plant and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness, of your good works. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God.